Hare Krishna. Today we're continuing the reading of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita Volume 3, and we'll finally complete chapter number 3, New Jagannath Puri, and we'll go on to a new chapter entitled Our Master Has Not Finished His Work. So Srila Prabhupada is spending his last few days now in the San Francisco Radha Krishna Temple on Frederick Street, and he's preparing to return to 26 Second Avenue Temple. On Saturday, April 1st, near the end of his stay in San Francisco, Prabhupada accepted an invitation from Lou Gottlieb, head of Morning Star Ranch, a nudist hippie commune. Morning Star was a bunch of young people living in the woods, the devotees explained to Prabhupada. The hippies there had spiritual aspirations. They grew vegetables and worshipped the sun. They would hold hands and listen to the air. And naturally, they were involved in lots of drug taking and free sex. So this is not an ordinary ranch. This is a nudist colony. That means anyone who wanted to, they didn't have to wear clothes. They would walk around Nangi Babas. And that's how they lived. And they were interested in having Prabhupada come and have kirtan. They went out of their way to invite Srila Prabhupada because despite their not following the principles, they had spiritual inclinations. And many devotees came from this Morning Star Ranch. To name a few, today we'll hear about Madhudvisa Swami. As soon as he met Srila Prabhupada, he left the ranch. Gaur Hari Das, Vishnu Jan Swami, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, they were all residents at the Morning Star Ranch. Now, Tamal Krishna, he came 1 month after Srila Prabhupada visited the Morning Star Ranch. But by Prabhupada's influence, even after Prabhupada left, we'll hear, he encouraged them to continue the chanting. So they would regularly have kirtan. So all the visitors, they would also engage in Hare Krishna kirtan, and that's how Tamal found out about Krishna consciousness and came and joined the temple. When Lou came in the morning to pick up the Swami, they talked. And Prabhupada gave him a rasgulla, a sweet made of balls of curd simmered in sugar water. After a few minutes together in Prabhupada's room, they started for Morning Star, 60 miles north of San Francisco. Lou Gottlieb. I told Swamiji to fasten his seat belt. He said no. He said Krishna will handle it, or something. So on the way out, I was showing off all my vast erudition in having read a biography of Ramakrishna. That's when Bhaktivedanta gave the best advice to the aspirant I ever heard. We were talking about Ramakrishna and Vivekananda and Aurobindo. These are all of Prabhupada's favorites, of course. And this and that. So he said, you know, and putting a gentle hand on my knee, when you have found your true path, all further investigation of comparative religion is merely sense enjoyment. Situated in a forest of redwoods more than 200 feet tall. Now who can imagine how 200-foot tall trees, but that's how tall the trees are in California. Some of them are even 5,000 years old. They were on the planet when Krishna appeared. Such big trees. So these trees grow very, very tall, and they live for so long. And every once in a while, there are forest fires. And the trees don't die during the forest fires. What the forest fires burn up all of the fungus, and because the trees are the sun can't come down because the trees are so high. So it burns all the fungus and the things that suffocate the trees. So the forest fires help the trees, but don't burn them up. So that's how the trees were able to live for so long. Morning Star Ranch occupied what had once been an egg farm. Some of the land had been cleared for farming. There were a few tents, some unsubstantial little huts, a couple of tree houses, but the only decent insulated building was Lou's place, an old chicken house. So this is the inside of Lou's house. You see, he has all of his books, and they have a picture of all of his books. So hundreds and hundreds of books, not a single Krishna conscious book. So Prabhupada gave him very good advice. The commune had about 100 full-time members, with the number of residents rising to as many as 300 on the weekends in warm weather, when people would come out to work in the garden or just walk around naked and get high. Prabhupada arrived at 1 in the afternoon on a beautiful sunny day. He first wanted to rest, so Lou offered his own house. Walking to Lou's place, Prabhupada noticed a few nude men and women hoeing in the garden. One of the workers, a short, stocky young man, Herbie Bresek, stopped his work in the garden and came to greet the Swami. So Herbie, we'll see a picture of him in the next one, yes. I looked all over for this picture. Here, this is Gaur Hari Das. Who knows Gaur Hari Das? We all know anyway, right? So this is when Gaur Hari met Srila Prabhupada. He was hoeing in the garden, undressed, and he went up and offered his respects to Srila Prabhupada. Herbie. Lou Gottlieb introduced us. We were planting potatoes at the time. He said, "This is Swami Bhaktivedanta." I came out of the garden and shook Swamiji's hand. I said, "Hello, Swami." He asked me, "What are you doing?" I told him that I was just planting potatoes. He then asked me what I was doing with my life. I didn't answer. So later, Gaur Hari left the farm, came and joined, and he did so much service for Srila Prabhupada in many temples. He lives in Alachua now, is that correct? A year ago he went back to Godhead? Oh, Jai. His wife's name was Chandramukhi? Prafulamukhi, yes. They had several children. 3 boys. Who was this? What was the name of the oldest one? He had a hippie name, Sundance or something like that. Yes, right. After resting for a few minutes, Prabhupada was ready for the kirtan. He and Lou went to a hilly pasture where the hippies had placed a wooden seat for Prabhupada before a bower of wildflowers arranged like a band shell. Prabhupada took his seat and began chanting. The commune members, all of whom had been anticipating the Swami's visit, gathered eagerly for the group meditation. Mike Morrissey Some people had, he's remembering, this is his memoir. Some people had clothes on, some people didn't. Some were dancing around. But Swamiji wasn't looking at our bodies. He was looking at our souls and giving us the mercy we needed. So Mike later became Madhuvisa Swami. He was one of our GBCs, he was a sannyasi, and Prabhupada called him the king of Sankirtan. He was such a great Sankirtan leader. When he used to come here, if you remember, he would have these kirtans, the whole temple just back and forth towards Prabhupada and then back to the other way, and for the whole temple would just be dancing in ecstasy whenever he would come here. All over the world he was famous for his kirtans. So this is the first time that Madhuvisa met Prabhupada. The kirtan was well received. One of the members of the commune was so enthralled by the kirtan that he decided to put on his clothes and go back to San Francisco with the Swami. Prabhupada spoke very briefly, and then he prepared to leave, shaking hands and exchanging courtesies as he walked to the car. Although Srila Prabhupada hadn't spoken much philosophy, his kirtan left a deep impression on the hippies at Morning Star. While leaving, he had told one of the young men, "Keep chanting this Hare Krishna mantra here." And they did. So that's how when Tamal Krishna and Vishnujan came later, the kirtans were still going on. And they were so attracted to the kirtan that after they came, they stayed for some time. You can read about this in Tamal Krishna Maharaj's book, Servant of the Servant. They also left the farm and came to join Prabhupada at the Frederick Street Temple. Lou Gottlieb. The Swami was an extremely intelligent guy with a job to do. There was no sanctimony or holy pretension, none of that eyes lifted silently to the sky. All I remember is just a very pleasant, incredibly safe feeling. There's no doubt that the Maha Mantra, once you get the mantra into the head, it's there. It never stops. It's in the cells. It awakens the DNA or something. Shortly thereafter, half of the people at Morning Star got seriously into chanting. Those that did were extremely sincere God seekers. Their aspiration was 1,000% sincere, considering the circumstances in which they were found. They were all dopers. That means they all took intoxication. They all took dope. That's for sure. But they definitely gave up that once they got in touch with the Maha Mantra. See, higher taste. Once you find something better, then you can give up the lower form of sense gratification. Yes, right. Yes, that's in the newspapers. He went, when Lou Gottlieb was making his will and he realized he was going to die, he decided that he was going to give his farm to God. But when he did die, his children instead sold the farm for $2.5 million. So I guess. Oh, really?
And they said, yes, okay, you're right, everything belongs to God. And so they bulldozed the thing under, and that's when the commune stopped. But he kept the property until he died. But the commune was over by 69.
Were you there?
I lived there after it got bulldozed under.
Oh, oh, oh. You, Okay, so for those who can't hear, Baba Tarini Mataji is visiting from Hawaii, and she was at the Morning Star Ranch after the commune closed down, right?
Right. They had a program there with some random swami, and so people were all invited. But it's already been everything bulldozed under.
Everything got bulldozed over.
Right.
Oh,
They fixed it back up and used it as a private
I see.
place, and he tried to give it to God again and his children.
Oh, I see.
But originally, he actually took Prabhupada wrote that peaceful law,
Mm-hmm.
and he presented that to the courts, and they said, "You're right, but you can't have this commune here."
What, you can't have what?
You can't have a commune here. Yes, it belongs to God, but we have laws, and you can't have a commune.
The court said that?
The court said,
Oh. It can belong to God, but you can't have a commune here. So they bulldozed the commune. Oh. But it still went on.
"No,
It was stopped after that. Okay. The commune was 60 miles north of... What is a commune? Oh, a commune is... Our temples are like communes, where we live communally, and we cooperate as an internal society, and people accept different occupations, roles, according to the needs of the society. So our temples also are set up like communes in that way. When people join together and cooperatively, they create their own little community. And that's called a commune. They were very popular in the 60s amongst the hippies. They would get together, get some land, and form a commune. The first day he had arrived, this is the first day that Prabhupada had arrived in San Francisco in January, that was 3-4 months earlier. The reporter had asked him why he had come to Haight-Ashbury. "Because the rent is cheap," he had replied. His desire was to spread the movement of Lord Chaitanya. Why else would he have come to such a dilapidated little storefront to live next to a Chinese laundry and Digger's free store? So we heard about the Diggers. They were also a commune, and they were called an anarchy commune. They were opposed to the government because they felt that the government was not doing enough for the hippies who were suffering there. The hippies had all come to San Francisco for the counterculture, and they were starving, they didn't have anywhere to stay, and the law enforcement was also not good. The police didn't treat them well. So what the Diggers did was they set up free stores where people would donate things, and anyone else could come to the store and take whatever they wanted. And they would also give out free food to the hippies. It wasn't vegetarian, but not according to what they say.
when I got there in 69, it was vegetarian."
Oh, in 1969, this is 1967. Okay. They would go to Golden Gate Park and hand out free food every afternoon. The reporters had asked if he were inviting the hippies and bohemians to take to Krishna consciousness. Yes, he had said, everyone. But he had known that once joining him, his followers would become something different from what they had been before. Last week we heard how at Haight-Ashbury, just near the temple, this is the crossroads. The devotees used to have Sankirtan here. This is the first place I saw the devotees, at Haight-Ashbury, doing Sankirtan. Many devotees to be met the devotees at Haight-Ashbury because they were quite prominent.
I actually, the first time the Frederick Street Temple.
Yeah. You joined there?
No, I went there for Sunday feast.
Oh, that's nice. Wonderful. In 1969?
Yes.
Nice.
Actually, I met Ramananda walking up Stanley Street.
Oh, really?
And he gave me a card.
That's wonderful.
But by 71 was Berkeley campus.
You joined at the Berkeley Temple?
Well, almost.
Almost?
That's where the chanting was prominent.
Oh,
That
at
was
Berkeley.
where I got my first BTT and the first Simply Wonderful.
Oh, wow.
The news were still coming and there were big circles and dancing and all that. And I didn't know nobody talk about the philosophy. I got a magazine. I put it in my bag. And, all the youth connected in those days. And so they said, oh, yeah, they're a little fanatic. And, so I was a little, I was, of course, into peace and that was part of the youth movement was against the war and like that. But guess what? On the other side, it was so attractive. I couldn't put it down. Was Balaram giving Brahmasura.
Giving what?
Killing Brahmasura.
Killing, oh, Balaram killing Pralambasura.
Yeah, I was peace loving. So by the time I got home, my bag was stolen, so I wasn't able to read the philosophy. Because when I did read finally philosophy, I never left. I started to translate Prabhupada's books.
Into Spanish?
Yes.
Oh, how wonderful. What book did you translate?
The first one was Bhagavad-Gita.
Bhagavad-Gita. You translated Bhagavad-Gita into Spanish?
Yes.
Oh, how
Prabhupada
wonderful.
Actually, by the time I met him in person in 73 with Hanuman, we took us, my sister and I,
In which country did you meet him?
in Los Angeles.
Oh, in Los Angeles. Nice, nice.
California. And Prabhupada said, go on, now translate.
Oh, wonderful.
Consulted with other devotees.
What was that?
He asked other devotees, and they agreed that I should continue.
Uh-huh.
This was December 73, and he accepted me as a disciple in October.
Oh,
And my initiation, my sister and I were the first devotees initially there. With one more trip.
the first devotees in
Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Buenos Aires, you were the first devotees in Buenos Aires, Argentina. You got initiated in Los Angeles?
No, Buenos Aires, that was the first initiation.
Oh, how wonderful.
Prabhupada said I was recommended for 2 initiations. But at that time, Prabhupada said, oh, right now I've done that and they leave after a month or so. So
Oh,
let's wait 6 months.
okay. So you got first.
Yeah, I registered the society ISKCON legally as a cultural and religious institution. And then my marriage was arranged by the Swami, and so I moved to Los Angeles,
Oh,
to San Diego.
and that was when you did the translation?
I had already, when I first met Srila Prabhupada, almost had finished.
How wonderful. Thank you.
And then it was a
It
sweet
wasn't
BBC.
published. It wasn't published.
It wasn't published?
No.
It
Because
was a little bit of a change of command of the GBC. And
Oh.
so 3 years later, the Gita wasn't published. And that's when my morning walks, and until Mayapur Prabhupada was very upset.
Oh,
3 years, it could have been published, and so many people could have benefit.
well, now, even here in Vrindavan, we distribute so many Spanish Bhagavad Gitas all over the world. It's so popular. Of course, the language is, I think, the third most spoken language in the world. Is that correct? Second. Okay, we'll go on here now.
Very interesting, one little note.
Yes?
I met Prabhupada, I wrote 3 books that I had edited. And Prabhupada me close to, like, or right next to him, and he, you know how he expressive he was. And then with one look, he said, "What you bring?" And I was holding on to the books. Oh, I realized that he wanted to see them. He was so thrilled. He was so happy to see that these books were
They were the
just
first books in Spanish.
Oh, how wonderful.
Krishna, Easy Journey to Other Planets, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Ratha-yatra.
Was that in Mayapur that happened?
No, that happened in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles.
My
Oh,
first meeting with Srila Prabhupada.
nice.
So he took the book and read the title in perfect Castilian Spanish.
Really?
And I was thinking, wow, Prabhupada speaks Castilian Spanish. And he turned around, he read my mind, and he said, Krishna even speaks the birds and everything.
Oh.
And today we were reading Krishna book, and that was one of the things Krishna learned
Yeah.
in school. Was all the languages plus the animal and bird.
Yeah, right. So here we have, this was 1969. Here's Mataji sitting here from that time. And after that, I don't know if any of you know Bhavattarini Mataji, but she received an inheritance of $40,000, and she gave all of that to Srila Prabhupada to build this temple. Yes. And then Prabhupada told her that she should live here or Mayapur, whichever she preferred. So she was living here since the temple opened, comes and goes, and now she and her husband have come to stay. Jai. So we'll continue now. Now the devotees were a family. If they followed his instructions, they would remain strong. If they were sincere, Krishna would help them. Lord Jagannath was present, and the devotees would have to worship him faithfully. So we remember Srila Prabhupada, he instituted arti with the candle, right? And that anytime you come to the temple, you bring a flower, a leaf, any offering, and you bring that for Lord Jagannath. So far these were the two forms of worship that Srila Prabhupada introduced for Lord Jagannath at New Jagannath Puri. They would be purified by chanting Hare Krishna and following their spiritual master's instructions. So this is Srila Prabhupada chanting. He's sitting on the ground here with all the hippies at Golden Gate Park, at Hippie Hill. And some of the devotees, Hayagriva is behind him here with his red beads around his neck and his long hair. And they're chanting, and hundreds of devotees would come and surround Srila Prabhupada as he chanted kirtan at Hippie Hill. Prabhupada got into the car accompanied by some of his disciples, and a devotee drove him to the airport. Several carloads of devotees followed behind. At the airport, the devotees were crying, but Prabhupada assured them he would return if they would hold a Ratha-yatra festival. You must arrange a procession down the main street, he told them. Do it nicely. We must attract many people. They have such a procession yearly in Jagannath Puri. At this time, the deity may leave the temple. So we can also remember that the day that after Srila Prabhupada installed Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, the devotees, without consulting Prabhupada, they picked up Lord Jagannath and brought him to Hippie Hill for kirtan. And Prabhupada, he explained to them that no, that's not, you don't do that on a regular basis. Once a year we do that in procession. So Prabhupada instructed them to have the Ratha-yatra. This is a few years later. This is in Golden Gate Parkway, beautiful, attracting up to 20,000 people, and they would all be fed full plates of prasadam, and Prabhupada himself would be sitting on the cart. He would have to return, he knew, to tend the delicate devotional plants he had placed in their hearts. Otherwise, how could he expect these neophytes to survive in the ocean of material desires known as Haight-Ashbury? Repeatedly, he promised them he would return. He asked them to cooperate among themselves. Mukunda, Sharmasundar, Guru Das, Jayananda, Subal, Gaur-Sundar, Hayagriva, Haridas, and the girls. So gradually in this volume 3, we've heard about how each one of them joined Srila Prabhupada, how they became initiated, how Jayananda, although he was an engineer graduate, he was driving a taxi and using all the money to support the entire temple there. How Subal, he also gave up his hair, and all these stories, these histories we've heard. And now Prabhupada's imploring them, you please cooperate together, and I shall return and have Ratha-yatra. Only 2.5 months ago, he had arrived here at this very terminal, greeted by a throng of chanting young people. Many were now his disciples, although just barely assuming their spiritual identities and vows. Yet he felt no compunctions about leaving them. He knew that some of them might fall away, but he couldn't stay with them always. His time was limited. So here we see in this picture, there's Jamuna, there's Gaur-Sundar, Govinda Dasi, and then on the other side is Srila Prabhupada is Malati. So this is when, and in the back is Sharadiya. This is when Prabhupada arrived. So now Prabhupada is leaving from the same terminal. Srila Prabhupada, the father of 2 small bands of neophytes, tenderly left one group and headed east, where the other group waited in a different mood, a mood of joyful reception. So now we're starting the next chapter. Our master has not finished his work. There was no warning that Srila Prabhupada's health would break down, or if there was, no one heeded it. As he moved from his devotees in San Francisco to his devotees in New York, no one passed any words that Swamiji should slow down. After the 5.5-hour jet flight, Prabhupada spoke of a blockading in his ears, but he seemed all right. He didn't rest, but went straight through the festive airport reception into 3 hours of strong lecturing and chanting in the storefront at 26 2nd Avenue. So Prabhupada by this time was 72 years old. And just as a side note, as we age, we can't do the same things that we were able to do when we were young. And when my mother came here to visit, the same thing happened to her. In the flight, she got a blockade in the ears. And when she arrived here, within 3 days, she had a stroke and had to get brain surgery right here in the room, just the guest house room, just here on the other side of the conference hall. Because elderly people, their bodies are breaking down. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, wasn't accustomed to flying. This was his second flight now, 5.5 hours, so it affects them. And we see also many of the devotees who have been traveling for many years. They have heart conditions, they have circulatory conditions, and we have to help these elderly devotees. To his New York disciples, he appeared dazzling and lovable, and by his presence, his glances, and his words, he increased their Krishna consciousness. To them, his advanced age, now nearing 72 years, was but another of his transcendental features. He was their strength, and they never thought to consider his strength. In the temple, speaking from a new dais behind a velvet-covered lectern, Prabhupada said, "In my absence, things have improved. New paintings hung on the freshly painted white walls. Otherwise, it was the same tiny storefront where he had begun his international society for Krishna consciousness." He had written them that he wanted to enter the new building on his return, but they had failed, and they had foolishly lost $6,000. So I'm going to talk less and read more so that all of you leave here happy tonight, because Prabhupada was able to get back the money. Yes, wait till you hear this. But without dwelling on this, Prabhupada made a more important observation. His disciples, despite the physical absence of their spiritual master, had made progress by following his instructions. So this, you see, Prabhupada's not sitting here. And in Prabhupada's place, they put pictures. And in the evenings, because Prabhupada wasn't lecturing, Rai Ram would lecture. And Brahmananda and the other devotees would lead the kirtan. And that's what Prabhupada instructed them to do, that they had to carry on the same morning and evening programs, and now they had to do it. As he sat looking happily at the freshly painted walls and the bright faces of his disciples, Prabhupada explained how one obtained expertise in Krishna consciousness by submissively following the spiritual master. He gave the example that although an engineer's apprentice may not be expert, if he turns a screw under the direct supervision of the expert engineer, he is acting as an expert. So Jayapataka Swami, he tells a story about how he became a devotee in San Francisco. Jayananda was building the Ratha-yatra cart, and Jayapataka was just Jay. He was just walking by, and Jayananda said, hey, come here. Can you help me? And he said, can you, here, hold this. I'm going to hold the nail, and you hammer it. So Jayapataka, he hammered it, and Jayananda said, hey, you're really good. Are you a carpenter? He said, no. Here, let's try another one. And he had him help him build the cart. And after that, Jayapataka Swami became a devotee. And then Jayapataka, he told it many years ago. He hardly comes here, but one year he came here. He was reminiscing during a class how he became a devotee. And when Prabhupada had to leave America and go to Montreal, he really wanted to go be with Prabhupada. And he asked his temple authority in San Francisco if he could go. And the temple authority said, no, of course you can't go. You have service to do. Prabhupada wants us to continue here. And then Jayapataka told him, yeah, but look, I got enough money for 2 tickets. You want to come with me? And then he said, yeah, sure. So he went to Montreal, and then from Montreal, Jayapataka was sent here to India and never left. Many of the devotees were relieved to hear this. What did they hear? Wait a minute. Oh yeah, about an apprentice can act as an expert engineer if he just follows his supervision. Many of the devotees were happy to hear this. So again, we have here this picture of the devotees carrying on with the kirtan even in Prabhupada's absence. So they were learning. They knew they couldn't just be inactive in Prabhupada's absence. They had to do what Prabhupada told them to do. So they went on with the classes and they went on with the kirtans. They knew that giving up material desires was difficult and that they weren't going to become completely pure devotees overnight. Brahmananda had even written a poem stating that if, after many lifetimes, he could chant one round of the Hare Krishna mantra with attention, he would consider this the greatest success. So that was another big, very big responsibility that the New York devotees had to do. They had to write and print the Back to Godhead magazines. And Prabhupada wanted all the devotees to write. So the devotees would write poems, and they would write articles, and every 2 weeks they would print this and then distribute it. So one of these poems Brahmananda wrote. But Prabhupada was explaining that even if they weren't expert in love of Krishna, if they worked under an expert, they were also acting as experts. The next morning, with the fanfare of Prabhupada's arrival past, because many devotees came to the airport as usual, it became apparent just how dependent the devotees were on their spiritual leader. The attendance was down to the dozen or so regulars, and Prabhupada silently entered the storefront and began to lead the chanting. But when the moment came for the devotees to sing in response, and Prabhupada heard their first chorus, he looked out at them, startled and compassionate. Now he could hear. They were weak, more like croaking than singing. They had deteriorated in his absence. The kirtans had changed while he had been away, and now he was hearing what the devotees were like, helpless souls croaking without joy or verve. Srila Prabhupada lectured from Chaitanya Charitamrita. When flying from San Francisco, I noticed that the plane was flying above an ocean of clouds. When I came from India by boat, I saw an ocean of water. And on the plane, I saw an ocean of clouds extending as far as you can see. Above the clouds is the sun. But when we come down through the clouds and land, everything in New York is dim and clouded. But the sun is still shining. Prabhupada is using this as an example. Krishna is always there, but then the covering of Maya, like a cloud, we can't see the sun because our vision is blocked, but Krishna is still present. Those clouds cannot cover the whole world. They cannot even cover the whole United States, which is no more than a speck in the universe. From an airplane, we can see skyscrapers as very tiny. This is New York City from an airplane window. So tiny it is. But when you're in New York City, these skyscrapers are so tall, there's no sunshine on some of the streets because the skyscrapers are so tall. It's all dark. Especially when you come from India, because here we have so much wonderful sunlight and warmth, and then you go to these dark places like New York City, and it's just as Prabhupada said, there's big blankets of clouds, everything is dim underneath. And then the skyscrapers, you're just a tiny little living entity on these streets. And the streets on both sides are the tall buildings, so you hardly get any sunlight at all. It's like a jungle, concrete jungle. Similarly, from God's position, all this material nonsense is insignificant. As a living entity, I am very insignificant, and my tendency is to come down. But the sun doesn't have the come down tendency. It is always above the clouds of Maya. Now, I tried to find this particular, because whenever Satsrupa Maharaj quotes Prabhupada's lectures, you can go to the archives and find the lectures and read the whole lecture. I couldn't find this one. And unfortunately, in this whole month, the months of March and April, there were very few transcriptions. So fortunately, maybe because Satsrupa Maharaj was doing the transcribing, he had this, but I couldn't find it in the archives. A newcomer raised his hand. Why is it that one person, one soul, comes to Krishna and another doesn't? Prabhupada replied with another question. Why is one soul in the Bowery and another has come to the Krishna temple? So Prabhupada was using an example that the New Yorkers could understand. Because in the Bowery, we've heard, that's where the drunkards and the derelicts lived on the streets. And then just a few blocks away is the Hare Krishna temple. So you have a choice. You can go to the Bowery or you can go to the Hare Krishna temple. He paused, but no one could reply. Because one wants to be here and the other doesn't, he explained. It is a question of free will. If we use it properly, we can go to Krishna. Otherwise, we will stay down in the material world. Everyone had something to ask Swamiji. Throughout the day, devotees would be in and out of his room asking practical and philosophical questions. And they took up their old ways of reciprocating with him. Once again, Prabhupada was telling Achyutananda what to cook for lunch and explaining to him that an expert servant learns to anticipate what the master wants even before he asks for it. So this is Achyutananda now in his advanced age. We had seen pictures earlier of Achyutananda with his hair. And Achyutananda wrote a wonderful, wonderful book of his times with Prabhupada. It's called Blazing Sadhus. He took that title from it's a stage of ecstatic love that's described in the Nectar of Devotion as blazing. And he's a very funny person. So there was a movie at the time when he was young called Blazing Saddles about the Wild West in America, all the cowboys and everything. So he took that title of Blazing Saddles, and because it was a famous movie, and turned it into Blazing Sadhus. So it's a wonderful book. We have it in the library. Everyone should read that book. Of course, you'll read a lot about hippie life, but you'll read so many wonderful instructions, personal instructions that Prabhupada gave to Achyutananda. Achyutananda, he was so attached to Srila Prabhupada that when Prabhupada did go back to India after his stroke, he followed Prabhupada, and he stayed there from 1967 up until at least 8 years, 10 years. He got residence here. He lived with the Gaudiya Math devotees. Prabhupada instructed him to, because there were no ISKCON devotees here. He learned Bengali perfectly. He learned all of the Bengali bhajans. He made the first songbook that we still use, Songs of the Vaishnavacharyas, that was compiled by him, and did amazing service for Srila Prabhupada here in India. So his book, yeah, and the tape, yeah, we all lived on that tape. Yeah, still. So you can read that book also, Blazing Sadhus. Satsrup came in to show Prabhupada the latest type manuscripts for teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So we had just heard before our English class, there's the Hindi class. So Sarvasakshi was explaining that Prabhupada had already finished translating the Bhagavad-Gita. It was trying to get it printed. So then he went on to translate or take the essential teachings of the Chaitanya Charitamrita to create the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which was going to be the next book that the devotees themselves would print at the ISKCON press. So these translations of the manuscripts for Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, they came from the lectures that Prabhupada was giving first in New York, then in San Francisco, and then when he came back to New York, he continued them. Although there was no difference in Satsarup's assignment, now that he was face to face with Prabhupada, he realized he had to type and edit more seriously. He asked whether he could resign from his job at the welfare office. Prabhupada said no. Yes, because he and Brahmananda, they were supporting the temple. They had expenses. They had the $200 a month for the shop, the storefront, Prabhupada's apartment, the electricity, the telephone, the devotee expenses. Prabhupada was feeding at least 20 people every day for free. So he needed Satsrup to continue his job. He was getting $400 a month. Jadharani continued painting in the outer room of Prabhupada's apartment. Casting shyness aside, she asked him many questions about how to paint Krishna. How is Lord Vishnu situated in the heart, she asked. Is he sitting or standing or what? Prabhupada replied, oh, for that you have to meditate for thousands of years. Jadharani stared at him in dismay. Then Prabhupada said, he is standing. And she went off happily to paint. So this particular painting, this one of the early paintings, this came as the front cover of one of the chapters of second canto, because they couldn't print second canto all at once. So the ISKCON press printed chapter by chapter, and this was the chapter entitled The Lord in the Heart. When Jadharani complained of weak health, Prabhupada asked Achyutananda to see that she got milk twice a day. So all they had was powdered milk. So at least she was able to get that. Looking through the window that opened into the outer room where typing, painting, and sometimes even construction went on, Prabhupada watched Jadharani one day as she worked on a painting of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan party. Just as she started to paint the words of the Maha Mantra across the bottom of the painting, Prabhupada called through the window, don't put the Maha Mantra there. But you told me to put it there, she said. I've changed my mind. Hare Krishna should not be below Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One by one, Prabhupada saw all his old New York followers. Gargamuni, the temple treasurer, who reported good sales of the Hare Krishna record and incense. Rai Ram, editor of Back to Godhead, who talked about his indigestion. And Rupanuga, who had a good job but was having difficulty convincing his wife about Krishna consciousness. So Rupanuga, he was like the angel for so many devotees. He made so many devotees at the Buffalo Temple. And his wife Kalindi, she was the mother for all of the devotees. So in the beginning it was difficult for her, but she later became a very strong and such a loving devotee, Kalindi, and they had a wonderful little son named Akendra. And it was just at the start, it might have been difficult, but later she and her husband, they were able to create so many devotees that are still in our movement and became temple presidents, GBCs, gurus, everything, all from the little temple at Buffalo, which is in northern New York, upstate New York. Even Mr. Chudi, the landlord, dropped by with complaints about the boy's behavior. Prabhupada also met Michael Blumert, a newcomer. Michael had been seeing a psychiatrist as a result of devastating drug experiences. When he had begun coming to the temple, his mother and father had thought the Swami another evil force. On meeting Swamiji, however, Mrs. Blumert accepted his authenticity, although her husband remained doubtful. Mr. Blumert, Srila Prabhupada said, "Your wife is more intelligent." Mr. Blumert said he wanted his son to help the world in a more practical way by becoming a doctor. So Michael Blumert became Madhusudan Das. And we all know him. He was living here for quite some time. When his health was failing, he came here for treatment. And he and his wonderful wife Kanchanbala and his daughter Chintamani, they came to live here. They wanted to live here. For some reason, they had to go back to America. And very unfortunately, he went back to Godhead there in America, and I believe they lived in San Diego. So his father he preferred that Michael become a doctor. Prabhupada argued that there were already so many doctors, but still people were suffering. A Krishna-conscious person, however, could relieve a person's suffering completely. So the work of Krishna consciousness was more valuable. Mr. Blumert was unconvinced, but he agreed to let Michael stay with the devotees and drop going to the psychiatrist. So we see now also on the East Coast. West Coast, we've heard that even the police would bring the crazy, drugged-out hippies to Prabhupada. Now on the East Coast, Madhusudan being an example, Mr. Blumert, his father, he agreed, all right, he doesn't have to go to the psychiatrist anymore. He can stay in the temple. He came to respect the Swami, even though disagreeing with him. With Brahmananda, Prabhupada discussed the urgent problem of obtaining a permanent visa. Prabhupada had repeatedly extended his visa ever since he had entered the country in 1965. Prabhupada came on a 1-month visa. So he would extend it 1 month every single time. Now immigration officials denied him any further extensions. He didn't want to leave the US, but the only way he would be able to stay would be to get permanent residency. He had applied, but so far with no success. Your government does not want me to stay, he had said, so I may have to go back to India. Swamiji's going back to India was a frightening prospect. His disciples had barely been able to accept that he could leave them for preaching elsewhere in the US. If he were to go back to India, they feared they might fall back into the material world. He was sustaining their spiritual life. How could they go on without him? And Prabhupada felt the same way. Brahmananda managed to find a lawyer to delay the proceedings of the immigration office. The threat of deportation passed. Prabhupada spoke of going to Montreal and getting permanent residency there, but his main intention was to stay in America and cultivate what he had begun. Brahmananda reported to Prabhupada about printing the Bhagavad-Gita. The manuscript was ready, and they were considering the costs and where to print it, even though they didn't have enough money to publish the book themselves. They hadn't seriously attempted the arduous process of finding a publisher, but Prabhupada pushed Brahmananda to do so. The only hope is that I have my books. Brahmananda also talked with Prabhupada about the $6,000 he had lost to Mr. Price. Prabhupada insisted that they prosecute the culprits. He sent Brahmananda to speak with various lawyers and also to tell Mr. Price and Mr. Tyler that His Excellency was back and would take them to court. At that, they relented. They were afraid of Prabhupada. Mr. Tyler refunded most of the $5,000 deposit, and Mr. Price returned $750 of the $1,000 he had wheedled out of Brahmananda. The legal services had cost more than $1,000, so that was lost. But Prabhupada said that when dealing with a tiger, you can expect to get scratched. In a letter to Kirtanananda in Montreal, because Prabhupada, one devotee, Janardhan, he was from Montreal, French-speaking. So he left and went to Montreal, and other devotees also went there to Montreal as well, including Kirtanananda. Prabhupada described the successful termination of the Price affair. You will be glad to know that I have been able, by grace of Krishna, to recover $4,227 out of the $5,000 gone in the belly of Sir Conman Fraud. That's the new name that he gave Mr. Price. So this is the long letter. I'll read it quickly, although it's late. An excerpt. Mr. Conman Fraud, Pain, and Mr. Goldsmith is trying to recover at least $500 out of another $750 in the belly of Pain. I prayed to Krishna specially for this recovery because I thought that Krishna's money may not be utilized for sense gratification. So I think still we shall be in loss of about $1,000 or more, which cannot be recovered because they have been shared by the lawyers. Anyway, it is Krishna's grace, but in future, all of you must be very cautious to deal with men like Pain, whom I trusted not from the very beginning. Okay, so that's it for tonight. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare